Welcome back to KFWB News Talk 980, and you're at Keeping Abreast with Dr. Susan Love. I'm Dr. Susan Love, and we're talking today about how you can prevent breast cancer and who's at higher risk for breast cancer. We talked a lot about lifestyle and how you can change the environment the cells are in, but there are people who have problems where they inherit a mutated gene in their breast, actually, a mutated DNA gene, and it's either BRCA for breast cancer 1 or BRCA2 for breast cancer 2. We're going to go to the next caller who has a question about this. Michelle?
Yes, hi.
Hi, this is Dr. Love. What can I answer for you?
I have the BRAC gene.
Mm-hmm.
My maternal grandmother had it, and my maternal mother also. And I was wondering what I can do to maybe prevent myself. I'm 44 years old, and I'm just wanting to know what I can do myself.
It's scary. Do you have the BRCA1 or the BRCA2? Do you know? One. So people who have this gene, and they often are in families like yours where the grandmother and the mother have it. But even with your mother having the gene, you only have a 50% chance yourself getting it. So unfortunately, you came out on the downside of the 50%. But not everybody who has a mother who has the gene is going to get it. Okay. And then the question is, what can you do about it? And this is where we're really in a conundrum, because you would think in this day and age we would have much better prevention techniques than we do. And in fact, the only things we've got are to do surgery. So if you remove the ovaries of somebody who has the BRCA1 or 2 gene, BRCA1 gene, you can reduce their chances of getting ovarian cancer by about 80% to 90%, and you reduce their chances of getting breast cancer also by about 70%. So even leaving the breasts on, just getting rid of the ovaries will do that. The problem with that, of course, is I don't know, you're still in your 40s, you're still premenopausal, and it will put you into menopause. But they have shown that you can take estrogen and not increase your risk if you've got the ovaries out. So a low dose of estrogen, which will keep you from going completely into menopause, does seem to be safe in that situation. The other choice is to have your breasts removed preventatively. And this is called prophylactic mastectomies. You can have them have reconstruction done either immediately or delayed, and that will reduce your risk significantly of getting breast cancer. It obviously won't affect the ovarian cancer risk. Or you can have everything taken out, which some people decide to do as well. Apart from surgery, the other things, the only other thing we have in our options is to do close surveillance, to watch you closely, so that if you do get a cancer, ideally it'll be able to be found at the earliest point. And so this is a situation where MRI is often very useful. Mammograms don't work as well in younger women, and MRI has been found, particularly in people who have the gene for breast cancer, to be good at finding the tumors at a much earlier stage. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
But what we really need is to figure out what the cause is so that we can just prevent it and not have to, taking away normal body parts to prevent a disease is a pretty crude way to do things. And it brings me right into my next point, which is we need to do more research. We need to figure out what the cause is and how we can stop it, something that's a lot more subtle than just cutting off body parts. So a way you can do that, the frustration I have with that is that most of the research, and we've talked about this already, is being done in mice and rats, and they don't even get breast cancer. Believe it or not, we're the only animal other than domesticated dogs that gets breast cancer. And yet we don't do the research on people. So the scientists have said to me, I've said to them, why aren't you doing more research on people? And they say, well, the problem with doing research on women is they're too messy. We can't control them. We can't control what they eat, what they drink. They go out and have, they have menstrual cycles. They have all these things that we can't control. And rats, we can control. We can control their genes. We can control everything about them. And it's nice, pretty science. The problem is it's nice, pretty science, but it doesn't necessarily translate to people. I mean, rats have 6 different nipples on each side. They have multiple breasts. They don't have breasts sticking out when they're not breastfeeding. They're completely different than we are. And so then the scientist said to me, and I don't know how to find women either. And I said, I know how to find women. So at the Dr. Susan Love Research Foundation, we've developed the Love Avon Army of Women, and we're trying to recruit 1 million women who are willing to participate in research. Some of them have breast cancer, and some of them have never had breast cancer. We right now have 358,000 women who have signed up, and 70% of them don't have breast cancer. When you sign up on the website, armyofwomen.org, we ask you a few questions, and then we put you on an email list. And when we have a study that researchers are looking for people for, we look at it. If it looks good, we email it out to everybody in the Army. And then if you fit and you like the study, you RSVP to us, and then we hook you up with a scientist so that you can participate in the research. But you don't have to. If you don't fit or you don't like the study, you don't have to do it. It's sort of like eHarmony. You don't have to date everybody. You don't have to be in every study. And if the study doesn't match you, maybe it matches your sister or somebody else you know. So we encourage you then to pass it out. Since we started the Army of Women 2 years ago, we've actually launched 51 studies around the country, and 55,000 women have participated in research. A lot of them have gotten answers very quickly, and they're very interesting studies. For example, there's one study in breastfeeding women where they think they might have a marker in the milk that'll tip them off as to who's at risk of getting breast cancer. And so the people who are breastfeeding and are going to have a breast biopsy, we let them know. They send you a kit. You put some milk in the kit. You mail it back to them, and with that, they can work this out. Right now, they're specifically looking for African-American women because they have some interesting findings, and they want to see if they're consistent. Other studies, you just fill out a questionnaire online. Or there might be there's some studies looking at genetic aspects where you spit in a cup, and they can analyze your DNA. There's a particular study at NYU that we're recruiting for where they're actually looking at people who have the gene for breast cancer to see what are the factors that then decide who has which women who have the gene are going to go on to get the disease. And some of them will and some of them won't. So we need you to everybody who's listening, to sign up for the Army of Women. Go to armyofwomen.org. And then when you're finished, send it out to everybody you send those jokes to on your email list, all your family members and everybody you know, so that we can get enough women that we can actually find the cause of breast cancer. The other thing that we're working on to try to find the cause is trying to figure it out in the breast. At the Dr. Susan Love Research Foundation, we try to focus on the areas that nobody else is paying any attention to. And one of them, believe it or not, is the breast. We know a lot about the cancer and all the cancer cells and all the mutations in the cancer cells, and hardly anything about the organ that it happens in. For example, we can tell you all about the DNA of cancers, but we are still arguing about how many holes there are in the nipple that milk comes out of. And we don't know how many ducts there are. We don't know what the anatomy of the ducts are. And we don't know what the breast does when it's not making milk. I mean, it's a pretty magical organ because it can make blood into milk. But what about when it's not making milk? Is it just hanging out? What gets concentrated? What gets absorbed? Could there be carcinogens in our environment that get concentrated in the breast fluid? Could there be a virus in the breast fluid that could be a cause of cancer? We have no idea because nobody has looked. And so we're trying to do that research and getting grants to help us, but all the donations and any support that anybody can give us, either monetarily or otherwise, is welcome. Because if we're gonna get beyond breast cancer, if we're going to get beyond the cure to the cause, it's only going to be because all of us are working together and forcing people to pay attention to it. We can do this. We can be the generation that stops breast cancer. It doesn't have to go on to another generation. It can stop now. We have to think big, and I know we can do it because I have an army of women who are willing to help me do it. So join the army of women. Donate to the Dr. Susan Love Research Foundation. Send us your questions. I'll be here again next Sunday, so tell your friends to tune in. And until next time, I'm Dr. Susan Love on Keeping Abreast, and together we will stop breast cancer. This is Keeping Abreast with Dr. Susan Love on KFWB News Talk 980.